Listen up, Gotham.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hiya, Buttons. It's me, Harley Quinn.
This is Batman.
This is Robin.
Tune into the Bat Fanatic podcast.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast with Sammy Warmhands.
With Sammy Warmhands.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast. Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
Although, Sam, you might think about changing the name.
Hey everybody, it's the Dark Knight of Rap, Sammy Warmhands, and this is the Bat Fanatic Podcast. Appreciate you guys hanging in there while we took a little holiday break, but we are back. I've got our co-hosts in the house, Gramps and Dunk, and we are going to be talking about something a little different this time. First, I've got to shout out our friend Nando over at TNK Comics and Collectibles. You can follow on shortboxed.com/TNK Comics for a look at his slabs for sale, or go to Instagram at the Nando Knight and check out his convention appearances, and there are a lot of them, as well as he does claim sales where you can get in on the fun. Now, today we're going to shake things up, do something a little bit different, which can be a lot more fun to talk about. It's kind of a tough sell on the gang, but this is Batgirl of Burnside. So, it's been a little while since we recorded. Dunk is in the house.
What up?
Gramps is here.
Howdy.
Before we get started, Dunk, you just went to a con. I mean, this will air way in the future, but you just went to a little con over the weekend. Looks like you got a couple of cool pickups. How was that?
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. You know, sometimes you have to go to the small cons to find some books or just build a relationship with some artists or random people. So it was pretty neat. I got to meet Mick Foley finally without a large line.
Nice.
Met the gentleman who plays the Iron Sheik. And then Mike DiCarlo was there, so that was pretty cool. I picked up a sketch from him. And
dude, that Robin Lives blank that you had done from him, that looks so good.
Yeah, I was like, dude, $85? I wanted to buy them all, but I was like, yo, I got Torpedo in San Diego this weekend. I can't go anywhere.
So was that pre-done?
Yeah, it was pre-done. He had it on the
Cool.
table. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm all in.
And that was like Batman. He was like holding like a scrap of Robin's costume or something,
Yeah.
right? That was super cool.
That was the best. I think that was the best one from there. He also had like a bunch of Jokers. He did homages to the covers themselves, but with his own little twist. It was pretty neat. So it was a con's a con. You can always find a good walking around.
Yeah, absolutely. I just checked the mail myself. I wanted to show you guys this. I haven't even taken a picture of it yet, but I saw a deal the other day that I thought was too good to be true. You know, we talked on the show about David Finch prices going up and up and up. They went up again, coming up for San Diego and beyond. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it, right? Because I'm going to try to meet him again in September at Rose City.
Man. Good luck.
But I see this deal on eBay for a quarter of his current price. And I was like, I hope this isn't a scam. Like the guy's going to send me a box with nothing in it or something, right? So I literally just opened it on video to make sure it was real and I had proof. And oh my God, this is a full-on Wonder Woman pencil sketch.
That's awesome.
Dude.
This would currently be an $800 piece that I got for $2.
Wow.
Holy shit. I'm blown away. I just took it out of the box before we started.
So what am I looking for again here on eBay?
I'll send you the seller's name.
Like for $200. That person had no idea.
I mean, I've got like constant
you don't know, now you know.
Notifications set on my eBay of all the different signatures, sketches, different things that I'm looking for, hot toys, you know, whatever. So when they pop up, I see it right away. Usually I see it and I'm like, fuck, I'm broke. But sometimes I see it and I'm like, I've got just enough in the bank. I'll do it, you know. But today, we're here to talk about this, which no one can see what I'm holding up, but it is Batgirl of Burnside. This is a change of pace for us. I like to, as Ben and Evan will attest, switch up. If we're going a little too dark and grim, I might give you a lighthearted one. This came out in 2014. It collects Batgirl 35 through 40. Secret Origins number 10 as well. That slipped in before the final issue. And this was written by both Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher. Artwork by Babs Tarr and Irene Coe. Colored by Maris Wicks and Hi-Fi. And lettered by Jared K. Fletcher. There may have been some controversy of this suggestion. I know Gramps was reluctant to pick it up. Literally, it was sitting on his floor when I went to his house. What was your first impression? Had you read it before, either of you?
Man, I haven't read it before.
Okay.
I was always a fan of those covers because Babstar draws these amazing covers, and there was all these variants that came along with this because it felt really modern when it came to the covers because they also had like the selfie series.
Yeah.
And in the back of the book, I realized I have the majority of those variants in there. So
yeah, they have some great ones.
A New York Comic Con exclusive.
Darwin Cook.
Yeah.
The one that I have is the Cliff Chang Prince homage.
Yeah. I got that book too. So it's like, it's about time I read this because I have enough of the issues.
Right.
So it's like, all right, cool. I'll give it a shot. That was my first impression.
Yeah.
Gramps.
Well, one, I had never read this. The only Batgirl title that I had ever read before was during the New 52 as part of some of the tie-ins for the Court of Owls series and Death of the Family.
Oh, right. Yeah, she had some pivotal stuff in Death of the Family.
Yeah. I remember when this title came out, how it sparked a little backlash because of the costume change.
Yes.
Also, it kind of seemed to de-age Barbara just a little bit. So there was a little bit of commentary about that. I do remember as I was reading this, I noticed the Darwin Cook variant, and I didn't know he had done one. And I was like, well, how did he do that? Because, he's passed away. And then I realized, oh my God, this is 10 years old.
Yeah, 10 years.
Because when you read this could have been written today.
It's very current, yeah.
I didn't realize these books were 10 years old. Came out in 2014.
Yeah, I'm impressed by that because I knew this was 10 years old, but sometimes when you get adults writing teens, it feels really fake and forced. And, we can talk about the dialogue or whatever as we go through, but a lot of this stuff just feels like the world we live in. So even if it's a very different thing for the show, I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this feels very modern and stuff. Either Cameron Stewart and Brandon Fletcher did a lot of thorough research and tapped into the Gen Z vibe of being able to write those types of characters and their situations, or else we just really haven't progressed much as a society in 10 years.
Well, and also I think that it makes sense for Barbara's character to be the one that introduces a lot of this stuff because she, being Oracle, has her hand in a lot of the technology that is kind of ahead of the curve as well. And so to be dropped into her in college and everyone's talking about social media and everyone's obsessed with their cell phone and carrying their tablets and their laptops and all this shit, I mean, that's definitely a perfect place to drop her in. It makes sense.
I kind of do a lot of self-reflection after reading a book like this. And I'm like, man, okay, this was written 10 years ago and it feels like today. What is the world going to be like in 20 years? Because, sometimes it's fun to look back at some of the comics we read and you see the technology at the time where...
And Joker's in the UN.
Joker's in the UN or, they're talking on payphones out in the street and all this stuff. Things that don't exist in today's world.
Yeah.
So much. But this, they're talking on cell phones. They're using social media and stuff like that. And I'm like, what kind of tech is going to be out there in 20 years where people that read this book are going to be like, oh my gosh, can't believe that.
Yeah, right.
They had that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
you had to use a GPS on your phone. Wow, that's so outdated.
Weird. Yeah.
So diving into the story, it begins with Barbara on moving day, just outside of what looks like a brownstone in Burnside. And Burnside feels a little bit like an amalgam of like hipster Brooklyn and like hipster Portland. I've always wondered that because Burnside is like a main street and neighborhood in Portland as well, like where I'm from. So it seems like they're kind of drawing from both coasts a little bit. I'm not sure. And from what I read, this was the first introduction of Burnside in the DC universe. But anyway, they're outside. There's a moving truck. Her old friend Alicia meets Barbara's new roommate, Frankie. A bit of dialogue here reveals that Alicia is protesting this website called blackbook.com. And was doxxed by the guy who runs it. Like, oh, I'm leading this protest against you. And so he's fighting back by sending his minions after her. Again, totally believable in our current world. And then she shows her phone to the girls. Like, oh my God, I just got a message. And they make a revolted face. And I'm guessing it's probably a dick pic or something.
I know. I was like, page 1, we're already getting this.
Yeah.
Good God.
I hadn't read this in a while, and sitting down and jumping in just to this first page, I was like, I hope they don't hate this. Again, a lot of the dialogue, you're like, whoa, this is definitely not a Batman story. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They're kids. We're hanging out with kids, basically. Alicia leaves, and we cut to the next day. Barbara wakes up hungover at 2:30 in the afternoon. She's immediately overwhelmed by a gossipy girl named Liz sitting in the living room, and then blindsided by this guy named Troy, who she supposedly hooked up with but doesn't even recognize him. Embarrassed and overstimulated, Barbara steps out for some coffee. On the way, she checks her email on her phone and learns that she was denied a research grant and her bank account is overdrawn. At the cafe, another customer says that his tablet was just stolen. She remembers someone walking out with one and chases him for blocks, jumping across rooftops in plain clothes and cornering him in an alley. The guy says, I'm supposed to be scared of you? You're like 14. She kicks him in the face or whatever and pukes in a trash can because
She says, I'm legal.
feeling good. Yeah, right.
God.
That's written by a dude.
Yep.
Oddly enough, though, we never see her return to the cafe with the tablet. So I don't know what happened to it. Because at the apartment, she didn't bring the coffee. So I don't know what happened there. But Dinah is sitting in front of the apartment and the mood is tense. Barbara says she should leave, ignores her pleas for help. And then Dinah says, my house and my entire block was burned to the ground. I have nothing left. Barbara panics because all of her Batgirl stuff was hidden there, and they run inside to find her computer missing, along with Troy's phone. Barbara retraces her steps and tries to remember the party from last night. This scene is fucking awesome. It reminds me of the show Monk. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but like the way she puts up her hands and she's framing her vision walking through the room and piecing back together. And we get this sort of translucent blue look to all the people and things that were in the apartment last night. And it's this 2-page spread, if I remember right, as she's walking through the room, explaining to Frankie she's got a photographic memory like a computer. It's talking about, oh, this person over here was wearing this and came with so-and-so. Like, what's the deal with them? And, you know, Frankie will explain, oh, who it is and whatever. And then they'll superimpose on the page little screenshots from social media of what that person was posting online. I'm sort of feeling already, and maybe you guys agree, there's a lot of fucking characters they're throwing at us right away. But I like that in this page, they kind of at least try to distill it and break it down. Like, our main character is also trying to make sense of all these motherfuckers. You know?
Pretty much. Everyone's trying to get to know each other. Thank God.
Yeah.
But like, similar to you, so like this page reminds you of Monk. For me, it was like, it felt like a video game.
Like the Arkham games when you put on your detective vision.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. And I was like, holy hell, this is dope. As Gramps mentioned earlier, a 10-year-old book we're reading, and it feels like pretty modernized because gaming is heavy right now.
I think that whether or not you are drawn to this art style, the page layouts and compositions are very interesting. Just the visual storytelling is cool, whether it's an action piece or just a detective piece like this. I think they make some creative choices.
Definitely.
One guy seems out of place here, and so she sets out to find him. She meets with Diana, who met this guy on a dating app called Hook. It's Hooq. And he apparently stole her purse. She's very worried because her private photos might end up on that site we were talking about, Black Book, that was being protested, and ruin her life. And to me, it seems like Black Book is maybe a commentary on sites like Perez Hilton or something like that are like gossip sites, you know, are paying people for scandalous information and clickbait. It's not necessarily the most consent based, who the subject of these photos are, right? They're just trying to get the dirt. So I do like that layer of it. Barbara also meets up with Sevin or Savine or whatever the fuck this name is, who was hitting on that same guy at the party, said he ran off in a hurry. This guy was introduced as both Jason and Andrew, respectively, and they both met him on the app. So Barbara asks Frankie to make her an account on Hook and gets a quick little makeover montage for her profile pic. And a familiar face named Brad sends her a DM and makes plans to meet that night. But Barbara cancels and Batgirl shows up instead. Real subtle.
Well, first she has to make her new costume because her costume
burned up, right?
The new 52 costume burned up.
Which is a good excuse for a redesign.
How convenient. And here's one thing that I was wondering, because in the art, you see where it looks like an iPod. Is that a real song?
Oh, where she's making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a real song? I don't know.
I'm guessing not. They have like fake musicians referenced throughout this. Characters. But yeah, it says TOR Fresh Crown by Juniper Vega featuring Lacey K.
And I was like, I've never heard of this, but that could be a real thing. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. Maybe.
Yeah, not on YouTube.
Comics had like little built-in soundtracks sometimes, you know.
Put a little QR code on there so you can listen.
Yeah, I've always.
That's a cool idea. Probably get tricky with the licensing and stuff, but this is a cool page though. You're right. I kind of glossed over this. You see, again, visually, it's very interesting because the foreground is all full color of cutting with scissors and painting the logo and using a sewing machine and checking it in front of the mirror and stuff. And then in the background, we see a mess on the table of receipts and a Sharpie and gloves in a package and measuring tape, fabric measuring tape, and fabric scissors. And there's even like a quick character design sketch that could have, for all we know, been one of the initial specs for this book. I think that is a really cool little montage, little vignettes. So yeah, this is when this guy, Brad, hits her up. She's like, yeah, I'm going to meet you. Oh, sorry, I can't come. And all of a sudden, Batgirl shows up. And I don't love that.
I mean, wouldn't you kind of figured?
Yeah, there's certain things in this story where I'm like, you're not being too protective of your identity here. But
yeah, very childish.
Yeah. He says that Black Book just wants the data off these devices that, you know, he's been stealing, and I imagine many others. And he gets to keep whatever devices are taken. Barbara memorizes his personal info and then wipes the guy's phone because, you know, she's got that photographic memory we talked about. Then she puts something on it, we don't see what it is, and says, you give this back to your boss. Riot Black is the guy's name. I hate that name. At Black Book. Or I'll call your mother. And I know your sister lives at blah, 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 blah. He's like, okay, I'll give it to him, you know. And that night, there's a relaunch party for the, I guess, once defunct or shamed. And I think there was some legal trouble. And Black Book is back. And founder, Riot Black, is a hipster DJ douchebag. Batgirl makes a Batman entrance through the glass ceiling. Oh, the glass ceiling. And they fight in a backstage bathroom. When his sunglasses, indoor at night sunglasses, come off, we see a cybernetic eye revealing all the scandalous data is actually in him, not just on some server somewhere that she can wipe off. Batgirl makes a deal that she'll send him photographic evidence of her true identity if he agrees to wipe the other data and spare everyone else. She texts him a picture of her face, but it says sucker, and she's holding a QR code right over it. And it triggers malware that she had installed on that guy's phone earlier. This wipes all of the memory from his cyborg eye, brain, whatever, and saves the day.
Now, did you actually put your phone up and scan this QR code?
Oh, I didn't even think to. Is it
You
real?
did.
No, I was going to ask you guys.
Holy shit.
I don't like
here you
doing
go.
that.
Yep, let's do it right now. Gotta find the page.
DCcomics.com.
Oh, perfect.
Clever.
I like that.
To the Batgirl 35 issue.
Oh, cool. That shot actually made me laugh when I saw it, of just her smirking with that QR code. It's like she printed out a QR code and is holding it in front of her face. It's a funny shot. And it's got the little like Snapchat banner for the text there, the caption.
That was around 10 years ago. Like, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Back at the apartment, Dinah is crashing on the couch now and complains that she has to work early. So, like, can you fuckers leave me alone, you know? Barbara admits that the fire might have actually been her fault and that Riot stealing the laptop may have triggered some remote incendiary devices that were stored at her place. Just then, she gets a text saying, "Nice work, Babs, but this city's not big enough for the both of us." And blah, 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 blah. And then she tells Dinah, "Oh my God, someone knows who I am." And that's the end of book 1. Again, it's been a while. And at the end of book 1, I am not totally bought in yet. It's a lot of shit, a lot of characters. The whole threat with the Riot guy and all this stuff, it just like happened really fast and was already over. Yeah. And I was like, what? I don't remember where this is going, you know?
It was really busy first issue. It was like, all right, how much of this do I really have to memorize?
Well, yeah, I was going like, do I have to write down that guy's name? Do I have to include this in the notes? I'm like flipping ahead. Do I see this lady's face again later? Do I?
Yeah. But is this bad guy going to come back? Or is this the last time we hear of him? And I'm like, wow, everything happened. So it was a really, just a lot of action, as you mentioned. First
it's a little bit like Jeff Loeb's Superman, Batman stuff. Every issue you get, a bunch of new characters, a bunch of new action, and then it's over. And then the next issue, same thing. But we're going over here now, and we're in a new place and a bunch of new characters and a bunch of action, and then it's over. I was like, I don't think it was that kind of story, but this feels very like, I guess, disposable kind of characters.
Yeah.
All I know is I was like, who is this target market audience for? This just makes me sound old, but just lots of Gen Z problems. Oh my gosh, he stole my cell phone. Oh my gosh, he stole my laptop. Oh my gosh, I'm hungover. Oh my gosh, this guy wouldn't make out with me at a party. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, this is a book for 19-year-olds for sure.
Yeah, we're going to a rave. Oh my gosh, the main guy is this douchebag DJ. It's just like, what did you sign me up for, Sam?
Yeah.
It was a rough first issue.
Again, even me, I was like, is this not as good as I remember?
Well, we are older.
Yeah, right? That's true. So since Dinah lost her possessions, in the next book, the girls are out shopping for new clothes. But Barbara can't stop wondering who knows her true identity. She asks Dinah for help, but she's still pretty pissed about the fire. This kind of carries on through this whole thing of like, she's trying to warm up to Dinah again, and it's just not happening. The next day, Barbara goes to see her professor, the thesis advisor or whatever, but he's not there. And another professor, Jeremy DeGroot, is helping her get into the office. He's very friendly and familiar with her research, and she's clearly very into him. He's like a younger, handsome professor. Inside, she struggles to recover the data on her laptop when a girl puts her in touch with her brother, Kadir, at the robotics lab. At the lab, he gives her a 4 terabyte hard drive, and they geek out about the then new Thunderbolt connection. On her way out, she goes Goodwill hunting on the chalkboard and fixes an equation to all of their amazement. Like, this should fix it for you, boys. I like those little things that they don't require a lot of time, but they show how not just smart she is, but how observant she is. Just like walking by this. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, you missed a spot. The next scene, there's mention of a break-in at the robotics lab, and 2 of these expensive prototype motorcycles are missing. On her walk home, conveniently right after this, Barbara hears screams and sees the motorcycles circling pedestrians on campus. She suits up, but Batgirl is no match for them on foot. She gets her arm and new jacket slashed and has to parkour up into a tree to escape them. That night, she and Frankie chain their computers and begin data recovery. Dinah fucks off in search of a, quote, bar that isn't an artisanal microbrewery. And Frankie makes it known again that you can leave anytime. Barbara mentions an old anime show that reminds her of these motorcycle thieves. The next day, she visits a toy store and asks if anyone's been asking about this show. Any other fans of this that come to mind? The clerk tells of two girls who are annoyingly into those obscure characters and show up at a lot of conventions and other events. Batgirl sneaks into Kadir's lab and asks for access to the crime scene. She detects that footprints don't break their stride at these locked doors, so they must have been opened remotely by an accomplice. She asks if the motorcycles had any kind of GPS tracking, and Kadir said, well, they've been disabled, which, could be a sore subject with this character. Anyway, when he checks again, the tracker is now working. Batgirl follows the signal to an empty warehouse. Two bikes charge at her, and we get a cool flashback that blends the present scene with the past as young Barbara watches anime on TV, and her dad comforts her when it gets scary. He says not to worry, she's smart, she's our hero. She'll find a way to outsmart them. So Batgirl pulls a move from the cartoon and clotheslines these bikes with her grappling hook. There was a very brief mention at the robotics lab that she wanted Kadir to make a grappling gun, but I didn't think she meant right this second. She was like, how long would it take you to make this? And, he's kind of becoming the Lucius Fox role. Right. So I thought it'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll cook one up for you in a couple days or something, but she already had it. Batgirl uses this opportunity to take one of the bikes, and as they race towards each other, she jumps over the front of it and kicks them off, just like Bruce does in Mask of the Phantasm. You remember that shot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was like looking at that and going, I swear to God, I've seen this exact shot, the same move from like a big bulky dude. I was like, is it Sin City? Or no, I was like, it's got to be like a big Frank Miller Batman. I was like, it's Bruce Timm Batman. That's what it is. It was Bruce himself.
Nice little homage.
When she ties them up, the girls seem confused because whoever hired them was posing as Batgirl. The next day, Professor DeGroot says that Barbara should be able to start her research any day now. And just then, Kadir comes in and says Batgirl found those stolen prototypes. Oh, hey, Barbara, did the data recovery work? I hope it didn't corrupt the files. And Professor's like, wait, you lost the fucking algorithm? And then Frankie walks in and says, oh, is this that hot professor you were talking about? And it was just like the double dose of humiliation, and that's the end of book 2. Where are you guys at here?
Listen, those 2 issues took me like 3 weeks to read. Those 2, there was like so much going on. It was happening quickly. And I'm just like, yo, like it's really wordy without saying much.
Right.
I was like, how much of this do I have to take?
Yeah. It's pretty busy, like you said, for not a lot going on as well. Yeah. There's a certain charm to just the almost sitcom style roommates interrupting, embarrassing each other there at the end. There's little bits that I feel like humanize Barbara, but what the fuck are these obscure cartoon themed villains and all this weird shit? And then, like, again, I like the visual storytelling of how they integrate Gordon into the page and young Barbara.
Yeah.
It's kind of cut in and out of what we're seeing in the fight. And I think that's more interesting than what's actually happening in the story,
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes more sense with that background.
I don't watch a lot of anime, but I thought that was pretty clever to kind of show, one, her age.
Right.
Her background, and then also these bad girls, they're not just out there being bad just to be bad. They're doing this because they believe they've been hired by Batgirl herself. They even say, man, I wish I wanted to keep the bikes. When the cool $500,000 popped up in our bank account, it was almost like it had already been there the whole time. And
oh, right. There was no record of the transfer or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Barbara's like, what's going on? So whoever is doing this, one, they're pretending to be me, but also they've got some skills. They've got some technological skills and advanced tools that are beyond what I understand.
It's a little bit like maybe the Gray Ghost or something as well, where you're taking a thing from her childhood and kind of using it against her,
Yeah.
And it's like, how does this person know me, whoever this is?
Did Babs Tarr draw all of the anime on this?
I think she did everything except the Secret Origin issue.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like they probably asked her, what do you want to draw? And she was like, I want to draw some anime. I'm like, cool.
It's funny, too, because this is the kind of thing that Ben was saying for years. Like, yeah, I want to do some Batgirl. I want to do Batgirl. And now we're finally doing it. And the two anime guys aren't on the show anymore.
Yeah.
So we have no frame of reference here. But
no. But, and we've followed Babs Tarr for quite some time. This is actually one of my first time reading a story where she's done all the interiors.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I really like her facial expressions and stuff.
She's really good with leading your eye, like the page where Babs is kind of remembering herself watching the anime, and then there's that little small block where you see her face and she's looking at the TV like in awe and wonder. And then the next panel down, it's Babs and her hands are kind of close to her mouth, but then there's this little slit where it's actually her in the current time with her.
The Batgirl eyes?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's such a good shot.
That is such a cool trick. And then in the next scene, the action of her fighting the twins, she really focuses on the eyes again.
Yeah.
Obviously, with a Batgirl title, you're going to get a lot of action stuff, but I didn't know that she could draw like sequences here with motorcycles and stuff like that. I've never seen her draw anything like that.
Yeah, I think she's elevating the script quite a bit. Not just the really interesting layouts and some of those smaller panels you're talking about. It's a thing that's very common in the White Knight series, and I forget what they're called, but Sean Murphy on his podcast has talked about, like, he has a name for those tiny little action panels,
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you see super often. I think that combined with the way that she does these really human expressions and stuff is like, it brings this story to life in a way that maybe the script doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your traditional grid layout.
Yeah, not at all.
And I don't know if that's, the writer's telling her to do that or if this is just the way that she's adding to the story, but it's a cool effect. It's a cool effect.
Yeah, that's true, because we're not actually seeing the script, so that could be, some artists are like panel 1, panel 2, so who knows?
Right.
All right, so book 3 is, I believe, intentionally misleading, opening with Batgirl in a getaway car after a jewel heist. They're taking selfies together of the crime for social media, Jesus Christ. And just as one of them is about to throw a Molotov cocktail at an elderly couple, it's about to get real dark, the actual Batgirl stops the car with an EMP, and we get a quick fight between the two Batgirls, and then that Molotov does get thrown, and the imposter slips away. Batgirl thanks Kadir for the EMP, and then he gives her a custom phone case so that she can document her deeds. As the imposter tries to destroy her reputation, she can hopefully take control of her own image. And they also mention this like super flash on it that can blind your enemies for a short period.
Very James Bond-esque.
Yeah, totally.
This guy looks like the Q from the most recent James Bond movies.
Yeah,
And his name starts with Q.
Good catch.
That's what I do.
Given this imposter's apparent need for fame and notoriety, Q suggests staking out this fancy gallery opening by celebrity artist Dagger Type, which is a name that is not quite as bad as Riot Black, but I still hate. Barbara, Dinah, Alicia, and an apparently injured Frankie get dolled up and attend the opening that night.
This panel right here just really threw me off. I was like, why does she need the walker?
And this is not explained until Secret Origin way fucking later.
Well, not only that, but
that's a problem.
It made me go back and read the first two issues. Issue 1, when at the brownstone, Frankie says something about like, I've got bad muscles. And I was just like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And then we saw this and I was like, what's going on here? Because she had never been portrayed as being handicapped or unable to walk on her own in previous parts of the story.
And I went back and looked at those pages too, and you see her digging through couch cushions looking for Troy's phone. We see her, at the party, and everything seems normal. So I was confused by that as well.
Okay, make sure I wasn't the only one.
No, they just didn't give us anything to work with there. I don't think there's anything wrong with writing that into the character, and I like the way they use it later, but they didn't really give us anything to make sense.
Yeah, I was like, hey guys, go along with this.
Right, yeah. You judgmental fucks.
Well, it made me feel stupid. What am I missing here? Where did I miss something?
That's what Evan used to say. He'd be like, I'm just going to assume that it's my bad and that I missed something and it's not a fault of the writing because I don't know where the fuck that came from,
Right.
There's a brief bit outside with the hot professor who comments on seeing her all dressed up outside of school. As they walk in, Barbara is shocked to see the entire exhibit is photos of Batgirl. She's mortified, and Dinah thinks this is hilarious. I love that bit. She's like, this is amazing, or whatever. The attack feels a little more personal, though, when they find a piece called Vulnerable, which features Batgirl in a wheelchair. I'm like, damn, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, that part, I was like, wait a minute. Well, two things happened. I said, holy hell, whoever the hell this is sucks. They know too much.
And that's a fucking low blow, man.
Yeah. And then the second part of me was like, wait a minute, how old is she?
Oh, you're right, because she was supposed to be like college age then, I think.
That moment, I was like, I don't know how old she is right now.
I know she was only newly Batgirl again at this point, but still.
Well, that was part of the whole conversation whenever this title came out because they de-aged her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard when you're incorporating generations of lore into these characters and still trying to Simpsons them where they're still kind of the same age, though,
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's another world. We can't relate to everything else you read.
Sure. She had previously had a relationship with Nightwing, who he was in his early to mid 20s.
70s. Oh. That's right.
So why would he be having a relationship with a girl that's 16 or 17, maybe?
Wasn't the Gail Simone stuff before the reboot, though?
It was part of New 52. So.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, I don't know then. Yeah. I don't know.
New world.
They're fictional characters. They can do whatever they want. They're flexible.
Yeah.
Now here as Batgirl, she confronts the art dealer backstage and demands to speak with the artist, Dagger Type. Apparently, she's never met him, so Batgirl runs decryption on the courier that they use and narrows it down to common points of origin. I thought that was very smart.
She's on it.
She doesn't find Dagger. She does find a book on American Sign Language, which gives her an idea. A patron at the art gallery had said, what's the point? There's no message in these photos. But in this new context, Batgirl sees a subtle message in sign language. Under Burnside Bridge, 10 p.m.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
I think this is a fucking stretch. It's kind of cool. I think maybe the execution could have been a little bit better, that she doesn't just find a fucking book and then, I'm going to recontextualize the whole night in my brain. But I do like the way that she pieces together the images anyway.
Okay. I missed that, but now I see what they did there.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of some far-fetched comic book shit. I think in a more realistic story, this imposter guy would be waiting under that bridge all fucking night and I guess she didn't figure it out. It's it's like one of those Riddler clues where, Adam West Batman would be like, of course, the only answer is a squirrel with a machine gun. It's like, no, that's not a normal conclusion. That's not, there's a lot of other things that could have been.
Yeah, they're definitely a stretch. I'm like, as you mentioned, that dude could have just been like, oh, she ghosted me. And
right.
All right.
If this was Robert Pattinson, he never would have got
it. Alfred would figure it out a couple days later.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Damn.
Under the bridge, Batgirl is disappointed that Canary won't come for backup. She's quickly ambushed by two hench wenches, is a term I've always loved, and a bedazzled Batgirl.
Beyonce Bat comes out. Bat Beyonce
Yes.
comes out.
Yes. And Batgirl quickly handles these two goons and then has an aerial fight with her imposter before removing the cowl to reveal Dagger type in drag?
10 years ago, guys.
And after all this ranting about fame and recognition, it's very odd to me that the culprit was probably as famous as Batgirl already. And after losing his mask, Dagger shoots at her, and she falls off the bridge into the water below. As a twist, I was not sold on.
Didn't care about it.
Well, especially when he says, Kanye wants to collaborate on my next.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, God.
Dagger sends out an email blast that he's going to reveal Batgirl's identity at the Landmark Theater tonight. Barbara lost her cowl in the water, but comes in plain clothes anyway. When the show begins, Dagger reveals himself as the artist, subject, and brand of Batgirl. The audience basically has the same reaction that I did and laughs right in his face. Enraged, he opens fire on the crowd, and Barbara holds up that fancy super flash phone and blinds him long enough to pounce and take him down. I have to ask, though, why was it so fucking easy for her to take him down in this situation when they've now tangled twice before and he seemed like more of an equal physically?
The Flash.
Yeah.
Or he just wasn't expecting it, right? Because like if he was fighting Batgirl, you're expecting, anything to happen. And this one, it was like, oh, some random chick's approaching me. All right.
I mean, I guess in those scenes you were baiting her, but you're also kind of baiting her in this by sending out a public blast. Oh, I'm going to reveal your identity. I don't know. Subdued, Dagger says that he did this for a client who specifically wanted the wheelchair pick and things like this, and that his objective was to take down Batgirl. When the police arrive to take him away, an officer says that she's very brave and then realizes that's the commissioner's daughter. He says she might just be a cop in the making, and they kind of flirt for a moment before she leaves. On the last page, Dinah begrudgingly joins Batgirl on top of the suspension bridge and takes a photo of Batgirl posed in front of the city skyline. She's decided that if Batgirl's going to be in the public eye, it's going to be on her own terms. She posts this photo to Instagram, or their non-branded comic version, Pixtograph, with the screen name Batgirl of Burnside. I do like that they integrated the title into the story in this way, and they waited till halfway through to do it.
Yeah, that's that moment. It was like, oh my God, look, they did it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the name of the movie.
It's funny. It's like there's just enough that I'm still bought in, but there's still also a good amount of these like disposable villains and shit that I don't care about. Like, I guess there's a format of the Long Halloween, Dark Victory type of stories, Hush, where you wind up kind of going through all the familiar Batman villains, and you think it's them, and oh, it's not them. And then you go to the next guy, and oh, you think it's them, and it's not them. I get why you don't want to keep doing that over and over with the same characters. But I feel the same way about this of like, it's this guy. No, it's not. It's that guy. No, it's not. But also, these guys suck.
Oh, yeah, they suck.
In a way, it's better because we're not repeating with the same characters over and over, but it's worse because the characters aren't as interesting at all.
Yeah, we're not going to see these characters again.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's why with Batman, all right, cool. The villains you have are pretty dope.
What are you talking about? Bat Beyonce is not interesting to you guys?
I'm saying we're not going to get One Bad Day Dagger type. Not going to happen.
Wait, you're not going to get a commission of one of these guys?
Of the unmasked Dagger in drag in the Batgirl suit?
Yes.
The sparkly suit?
Which Dagger turns to Dazzler, pretty much, right?
Oh, you're right, yeah. Yeah, with the suit.
With the makeup and everything.
Yeah,
even
yeah,
with
yeah.
the blue shading. I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
All right, DC, you finally copied Marvel in a way.
Oh, yeah. They've never copied each other.
No, never. They never do that.
Book 4 opens with a great montage of various headlines and social media posts of Batgirl's heroics. It's very Peter Parker Spider-Man kind of thing, but for the modern age, social media, blogs, all that kind of stuff. My first thought here is that Batman would not approve giving out any information of yourself, let alone photos. And then Dinah basically says the same thing. So this is the second or third time now where I have a concern in my head and the writers immediately address it with another character. Batgirl is defiant that he can live in the shadows if he wants, but she's going to do it her own way. They get in a fight, and Dinah says, "I'm out." Sounds like she's done for good.
I like how Dinah says, you pulling all this celebrity stuff makes you answerable to the scariest man on the planet. That tells you a lot.
Later, Barbara is on her second date with Liam, that cop from the Landmark Theater incident. It's stated that they met on Hook, and implies that maybe Frankie or someone pushed them into each other's feeds, because it was like, oh yeah, you happen to pop up in my top recommended matches or whatever the fuck, you know. Is that dog snoring in the back? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Wow, that is...
You know who it is.
Wow. Louis need a breathe right strip or something.
That's how he felt about the book.
Louis at my feet. That's Posh at the back. Yeah.
Wow, that's funny. Because I didn't see either of the dogs the whole time, but after a while I'm like, I swear to God, that's a snoring sound.
Yeah, she's passed out.
While walking home, the two of them see reality TV star Jordan Barbary fight some paparazzi guys, and Liam says he severely injured a pedestrian once while racing in the street. And then the subject changes to Batgirl, and they argue about whether she's really helping or not. He says that Riot Black was released from jail because of Batgirl's interference, and that it's his job to clean up the streets as a cop, not hers. They still have a nice goodbye, but their interaction lingers in her mind after he leaves. Frankie is dealing with a software bug on Hook, and she asks what happened with Dinah because she suddenly moved out. What was her comment there? She's like, ask little Miss...
Yeah, I'm trying to look for it.
She's like, ask little Miss Selfie or some shit. She was going to stay with her band. And this comes as a shock to Barbara. I didn't even know she was doing this, but apparently she's living with her new bandmates. The next day, the hot Professor DeGroot says that her thesis supervisor is back and ready to meet. She panics knowing that her algorithm still hasn't been recovered. I need to ask you guys this. We saw the data recovery party that they left their computers going and fucked off to the event or whatever. It was never explained, to my knowledge, that didn't work. Was it?
They never mentioned it.
I kind of put it out of my mind, but here she's going, I still haven't recovered the data. I'm like, but didn't you? So she tells Nadima in the office there, that was Q's sister, that the code somehow includes a map or a scan of her own brain, and that's why she never backed it up. It's like, well, why wouldn't you make a backup? You're a tech person. It's like, well, it's of me. I'm part of the thing, which is a little weird. Despite the urgency of this situation, she's still fixated on something that she can control, and that's Jordan Barbary. He's posted online that he's going to be racing his muscle car, and being at a bar, we can assume that he's probably drunk driving. She surprises Q at his place and asks to borrow one of those motorcycles from the lab. When she arrives at the bar, Dinah's band is playing on stage, though they never interact. Jordan seems excited to see Batgirl, as does everyone, and challenges her to a race. She tells Jordan that if he starts the car, he's going to be on her bad side.
Now, don't you think Dinah's lyrics are pretty much about her and Bab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through it.
Which is quick turnaround if they wrote and rehearsed that song in a day. Of course, he races off, and they have a chase through town. One pedestrian is nearly hit, twice, by each car. And then a cop car joins in the chase. And when Jordan is barreling toward another pedestrian walking his dog, she throws some kind of grenade under his back wheel, causing the car to flip about 45 degrees, and the tires fly over the guy's head while he ducks down to protect his dog. That's some Fast and the Furious shit with that panel.
Yeah, and that smoke bomb or whatever it was landed right on his nuts.
Well, yeah, right after that, she throws smoke bomb into his window, and it looks like some kind of knockout gas, but then when he crashes, it's covered with this expanding protective foam. I guess that's what the gas turned into or something. So I don't know. I would imagine if the knockout gas turns into that it also expanded in his lungs and he's dead.
When I saw that part, I was like, oh, Demolition Man.
Oh, yeah.
He got into the crash because he couldn't drive the car, and then all the foam filled up. I was like, oh, all right, that's interesting.
Now the cop gets out, and we see that it's Liam. He's drawn a gun on Batgirl. She throws a smoke bomb and escapes. This reminds me a little bit of Batman the Imposter, which came out much, much later, but Batman winds up fighting Officer Blair Wong, who in real life is like Bruce's ally and possibly girlfriend. There's this sort of tension in this standoff that's different than your regular, Batman in front of the cops moment. The next day, Liam and Barbara meet up, and he tells her everything that happened with Batgirl. He said they crashed into a historic cafe that had been there since 1942, and now it's closing forever. He apologizes for complaining so much and excuses himself for a moment. He had previously, on the first date, mentioned something about Barbara's mom not being around. And she's like, what? And now he makes mention of her brother in passing. And she seems perplexed, but then quickly distracted by her phone being flooded with angry tweets about Batgirl. And before she can react to that, her phone rings. Or maybe is it Liam's phone?
No, it's her phone.
Okay, because it rings with her face on it.
Yeah.
But it's her phone number and her voice, someone impersonating her yet again. And that's the end of book 4.
This is the issue that was like, all right, cool. This is building up to something decent.
Right, because I think the dynamics between her and the cop are inherently interesting as your crime fighter and secret identity kind of two lives in conflict. I think that stuff's always interesting.
That was quick. The bad guy was like 3 pages. And I was like, cool, whatever. Drunk driver, sweet. And then you got more of like other things going on in her life, a little more detail.
And that made sense too, because he's also like a influencer, celebrity douche, but he didn't feel as corny as Riot did, or Dagger did for some reason.
Yeah, he wasn't after her. He just showed up.
Now we're getting to the real tension, and Babs is facing negative feedback. She kind of bit off more than she can chew, which it was kind of predicted by the message in the text that she got the one time. And then now she's got this boyfriend that has a conflict with her because, he's a cop. And he even says something about like, he earned his suit. You can't have these people that just put on a costume out there and basically taking away his job from him. That's a conflict.
Yeah.
And then you've got, who is this mystery imposter? Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think that relationship dynamic is interesting, whether it's Batman and Gordon or Batman and Blair Wong, like we talked about, or like the cartoon, The Batman. Bruce's best friend is Ethan, and he's a cop. I always think that stuff's interesting. And of course, it's built in with Barbara because she's Gordon's daughter. That's just a central Batman, if not Batgirl, relationship dynamic that I like.
Agreed.
Book 5 opens with Batgirl chased by angry citizens. And I thought this was going to be a dream sequence.
I did too.
That's what I thought immediately.
Because book 2 or 3 opens with that heist, and that turned out to be kind of a fake out. So I thought this was going to be a fake out, but it's real. And next she meets with Q late at night. And at first, when she's up there on that basketball hoop in the dark, I thought she was drawn like another imposter. But again, it appears to be real. It was just like the shadows.
Yeah.
I just love the lady taking a swing at her with the rolling pin.
That's very Warner Brothers old school cartoon.
Oh, man, I love that.
She wonders out loud if maybe the dagger photos really were of her. She's trying to piece together, like, how is this happening? How is it so real? How is it so close to home? And later, Frankie is working with a couple freelancers to fix the code at Hook. One of them works for the GCPD, and there's like some forensic data recovery. And I was like, oh, that's going to come into play later. It doesn't. And he asks if she's dating Liam. I'm like, oh, I heard about that. It's big news, the commissioner's daughter and all that shit. And when we first entered the room, it sounded like they were talking about Riot Black being released and needing to be rebooted after his encounter with Batgirl. Speaking privately in the other room, Barbara asked Frankie if she's been acting differently. At the same time, the Hook app posts a reward for Batgirl's capture by any means necessary. Frankie's panicked, saying she might as well look for a new job because there's no way they can fix that fast enough.
So now we know why the baker lady is chasing Batgirl.
Why?
Well, because they're putting out rewards for her.
Well, yeah. I think that was supposed to just be a turning of tide of public opinion, but I mean, definitely at this point,
well, yes,
she's got a target.
Yeah.
Barbara finally meets with her thesis supervisor, Professor Krupke. He expresses concern that she's changing her thesis now and hopes that she hasn't sold her work to a software developer. I'm starting to wonder if this algorithm with a map of my brain thing plays into her imposter problem and why she keeps questioning her own actions. Like, is this some weird... I guess I couldn't quite pinpoint it.
Yeah, at this point, I was like, you see and realize how fast she thinks.
Yeah.
And how her brain works. She's like, wait, what's wrong with me? This is where I got caught up again. I'm like, oh, she's a teenager, right? She's not a teenager, but, she's of age, early 20s.
Right.
Very busy in the mind. She's just going nuts with all this smaller stuff we thought we saw in the beginning kind of just grew. And she's like getting it from all angles.
Yeah. Later, she sulks at her desk when Nadima and Hot Professor Jeremy start talking about Dinah's band playing at the Hook event downtown. Said the stage is already set up, so Barbara heads down there to catch Dinah at soundcheck. Barbara said she's really scared and really needs help, but the band's in the middle of setting up and Dinah says, I can't break away. Basically like, good luck, you'll figure it out, I'm sure. In costume now, Batgirl sulks on a rooftop. She's about to delete Dinah's number for good when Liam calls, but she ignores that as well. From below, she hears screams from a mugging and jumps in to save the day. Standing between the assailants and their victim, she gets attacked from behind. It was actually a ruse just to catch her. And I immediately think of the ruse in, I think it's Year One. She can run in heels. Far too women can walk in heels these days. That whole thing. It made me think of that, where like Batman was too smart for it, but she is younger and wasn't.
Well, this reminded me of a black and white story, which I highly recommend our readers to check out, Batman Black and White, where basically Alfred sets up a mugging. Batman comes to the rescue, thinks he saves the family, and then they beat the shit out of him too. And Alfred walks up and is like, that's what you get.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this one, the victim winds up attacking her as well. And just then, Canary shows up and roundhouse kicks the shit out of him. And they briefly celebrate, saying the birds are back. And Canary says, staff meeting tomorrow. I was starting to think it's really weird to include Black Canary and just not use her at all. At this point, we're in the 5th book, I think. She hasn't suited up once, and they only talk to say we're not talking anymore. It was kind of like, is this left over from the previous arc? Like, we have to address their relationship or something, but like, it was nice to see her actually suited up and in the middle of it.
Yes.
Here we get a rooftop training exercise with Dinah and Barbara. I really like this. It looks like it's at sunrise. She says the real Batgirl doesn't care about image or social media, and it's made you sloppy.
She throws her a staff. This is what she meant by staff meeting.
Right. I didn't catch that. That's funny. Yeah, I like any martial arts training montage. So yeah, this was great. And they're like having a conversation throughout it. Barbara tells her about this imposter and asks how Liam knew all these personal things, as well as the phone call from herself. But Dinah says, your mind is like a computer, like you're fucking rock solid, and hearing that, something clicks. The code that's fucking things up at Hook might be her own brain scan algorithm. And Frankie isn't at the apartment, but she left her phone behind. So Batgirl and Canary go to Hook headquarters. It's right next to the stage, a big skyscraper, and she decides to go up alone. Now, this is a very cool page where she uses the prototype jet-powered motorcycle to half scale the wall, like Batman Forever maybe, dismount, and shoot a grappling hook to the roof while the bike lands itself with the parachute. Canary sends a text that says, show off. I like this page a lot.
It was pretty fun. By this point of the book, I was feeling like, you know what? This could be like a legit series.
Yeah.
I get the buildup. I get the first 2 episodes. And I was like, wow, now we got the action, finally.
Yeah, there's definitely a version of this that I would love. Inside, Frankie is looking at photos of Batgirl's life, including somehow scenes from The Killing Joke, like from her perspective. And I'm wondering if this is like maybe uploaded from her memories, you know? And when they come face to face, Frankie says, wait, you're Batgirl? And then the computer says, no, I am Batgirl. And a digitized Barbara says, and I'm going to take back what's mine. And that's the end of book 5. What are you thinking about this reveal of that's who we've been after this whole time?
This is the moment where I'm like, oh my God, it's AI. This is exactly what we're going through right now. I'm freaking out.
I had the same thought of like, how is it this contemporary?
Yeah.
That's fucking
10
crazy.
years ago.
Yeah.
This is like my biggest fear right now.
And only now is that actually becoming like functional enough to be a believable story. Like 10 years ago, that was still some Terminator sci-fi shit.
Anyway, here we are still messing with it.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, okay, so Barbara has a digital doppelganger?
Yeah, they should have just called this Doppelganger or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Here, we break up the story with Secret Origins number 10. And we get a quick recap of her life, beginning with recovery in the hospital, to having her brain scanned to design the implant that allowed her to walk again, to meeting Frankie in physical therapy. Apparently she has muscular dystrophy, we've learned. And then her miraculous recovery. And what's interesting is that the narration appears to be blocky and digitized, like the end of book 5. And she seems to have no memory of the events shown after the brain scans. From her friend Alicia to fighting the Joker and death of the family, she has no memory of these things at all, even saying at one point, this hasn't happened yet. Additionally, she describes this predictive algorithm like some kind of dystopian Minority Report. And Frankie seems worried that this could be dangerous. The narration continues, good, I'm still Batgirl. This is a very short little tie-in, but it gives us a lot. And I kind of wish this shit was more integrated into the main story, because this is cool.
Yeah, it definitely helped.
This should have been around issue 3.
I totally agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Or even integrate some of this into the first 2 issues.
But that would have spoiled the whole build-up and the surprise.
Yeah.
I think this has enough world building where we can see, like, okay, this is how she knows Frankie, right? And these are some of the things she went through, and this is how her algorithm was created, right? And those type of things that make more sense of all this shit instead of just like tell. This shows us. So you could, I think, sprinkle pages from this throughout the fucking whole story without realizing it's a different narrator, you know?
Because of this issue, this is where I told myself exactly what you're thinking. It could be like a TV series.
Yeah. I really think this ties the whole thing together. And this is the one that's got different artwork on it. You know, it's not so insanely different that it bothered me or anything, but the story in this beat made the whole issue.
Yeah.
Book 6.
Now we're back messing with Max Headroom Barbara.
Yeah. So Batgirl tells Frankie that her stolen code has become sentient in Hook's computers. And the program corrects her, saying, I'm the real Barbara Gordon. I saw an imposter using my body, so I attacked her with things from my own past, like the motorcycle twins, and turned her image against her, like Dagger Type, and made her feel alone and unlovable, like Liam, and turning the city against her. So I do like sort of explaining the multifaceted, like, 4-prong attack, maybe a little bit of a James Bond villain speech thing about it. But I do like at least seeing well, yeah, there's specific reasons that I did these things. Because they seem really wacky, oddball choices when you first read it.
And it confirms who the narrator was in that Secret Origin, because the font and the lettering matches the narrator in that story.
Yeah. The program FaceTimes with Dinah, telling her everything's okay upstairs, and then Riot Black appears, again being part cyborg or something, and attacks Batgirl from behind. She wakes up at sunset while the program tells Riot how to upload her consciousness, the program's consciousness, into Batgirl's brain by using that neural implant that allows her to walk. Over a 2-page spread, it shows virtually every character in the series and how they're all invited to this event, and how through cause and effect, each of them will somehow be connected to various crimes in the future. However, involuntarily. It might be like you hired this guy and then he went on to do this horrible crime or something like that.
It was like someone moved, so someone else moved in and they murdered 14 people.
Right. It's like this whole degrees of separation thing. But I do think that's cool. Again, in a Minority Report sort of way.
Yeah.
It's basically planned this, so all of them were invited to this event where Dinah's band is performing. And from there, she plans to blow them up with a satellite space laser or something. And that I don't really care about. But using this time to untie herself, she knocks out Riot, and the program freaks the fuck out, starting a drone attack on the crowd outside. And in a very cool, yet unbelievable from a skyscraper kind of move here, Batgirl kicks a rolling office chair through the window and just dives right out. It looks so fucking cool, and there's a part of me that's just like, but that couldn't really... And I was like, shut up, this is awesome.
That chair would just bounce off the glass.
Right. So she like
funnier.
Catches their big branded balloons on the way down and sort of glides and then flips down, lands on the crowd, and fighting the drones, taking them on as they dive into people below.
She's busy.
Yeah. And Q suggests that an ultrasonic blast might disable the drones. So Batgirl finds Canary, and here she probably deafens hundreds of people, but stops the drones. And I was like, oh my God, you're really going to do the Canary cry in front of like 1,000 people? That's fucking wild.
Yeah, everyone's ears is bleeding.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could see them like covering their ears and yelling and shit, but I'm like, oh my God, these people are permanently disabled. Now the program broadcasts itself on the Jumbotron with Barbara's face and says some, nothing can save you now bullshit, and the satellite's going to blow you up or whatever. And the cops show up now and try to arrest Batgirl. No, I'm not sure how the program can hear her back through the Jumbotron here, but Batgirl breaks down the logical flaws in this plan, saying, like, you're so caught up in the anger from that time right after her injury, she's paralyzed and all this. And so these are things that Barbara has since dealt with and moved on from. And so it's like, you're clouded by all this. You can't see the truth. If Gotham needs saving, and these people here are Gotham, then punishing these people is only punishing Gotham. And it's just sort of like trying to reframe this as like a logical fallacy, and the only way to save the city, she says, is to destroy yourself. Again, saying this to the AI program, which then freaks the fuck out. And this gives Frankie a chance to somehow disable the satellite, which are satellites typically armed with fucking weapons? I don't really think communications devices are for that. I mean, Lex Luthor lives in this world, so maybe, but I just thought that was weird.
I think there are, but whatever.
Okay.
We'll find out eventually.
Like, they're not Death Stars, you know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Yes, they are.
All right. Well, fuck me.
And they're all Wayne Tech, too.
Right. There you go. Dinah starts the show as Batgirl sneaks off, escaping the cops, and all is well. In the epilogue, Frankie tells Barbara, I recovered the algorithm before the whole AI monster self-destructed, and she thinks it can still work. She even volunteers to join her crusade. She seems very excited, like, oh my God, my roommate's a fucking superhero. Dinah knocks on the door and says the band got signed and is leaving to make a record and then tour. She and Barbara make up, saying that none of this would have ever happened if not for that fire. So I guess it's really not the end of the world. In the last panel, Dinah points to the laptop and says, "So what's that?" And that's the end. And the crowd is speechless. Jesus, guys.
I know this made you so curious that you had to go out and buy Batgirl 41 to find out what the program was.
I did buy volumes 2 and 3 of this the first time I read it. I don't remember what they are, but I think it ties in with Super Heavy, where Gordon is filling in for Batman, because I think it was around that same time.
That time.
Yeah, weird time. What do you guys have for pros?
I think we discussed some of the sequencing and art styles that Babs Tarr really offers. This is really suited towards what she likes to draw. She likes to draw young, fashionable female characters.
Right.
This has a lot of her style all over it. Plus, we mentioned in all the little tricks and panels.
Yeah, the layouts are cool.
Yeah, the layouts are really cool. It's not your typical grid layouts. Offer some cool perspectives. Colors are really cool because, they make the art pop off the page. It's tailored towards a very young audience. I could see it being a cool gateway to get younger readers in.
Oh, yeah.
It's very diverse, which is really cool because large city, you're going to have a diverse population.
Yeah.
And it's good that there's some representation in there.
Well, I think that there's bad ways of doing that. Like, for example, there was a tie-in comic to the Harley Quinn HBO show. And I think it was called the Eat, Bang, Kill Tour or something. To me, that was like, this is what right-wing Twitter bots bitch about.
Yeah.
Unjustified all the time. And here's a real version of it where it's like, why is this person even in the scene? What does this have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Whereas like, well, you're really just trying to cram these motherfuckers in here to get every type of person you can possibly fucking think of. And then there's other times where it's just like, this is how this person perfectly fits into that story.
Right.
This is why that character's background makes perfect fucking sense. And all of these do. Like Frankie tied to Barbara, Q tied to the tech and the robotics, and like his sister at the university. And so like it just makes sense how all these connections are made. And with Barbara's history of disability and all this stuff, like it's all suiting the characters. And that's why it fucking works.
Yeah, some of it feels a little forced, but at the same time, they flesh it out and it makes a little bit more sense with some of the characters. Now, I wish they'd kind of explained a little bit more about Frankie with her, muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, they should have done that earlier.
They should have done that earlier because basically she's the new Oracle.
Yeah, which I thought was a cool idea. She's reclaimed the Batgirl mantle, and then
she needs an Oracle.
Is like, oh, but that's a valuable role.
Mm-hmm.
And again, having someone just volunteer to do it is way better than like, I'm going to find this person and train them up to be whatever. Like, she's a coder. They're friends. She accidentally found out her identity, like it's an early Jason Todd kind of thing, I guess. Just fell into it, I found you. Dunk, what do you got for pros?
For pros, the art fell along with the story, and like as Gramps said, it was very trendy. As we discussed, you don't know what era was it trendy. Was it trendy 10 years ago, 5 years ago, today? It all felt fairly similar, just looking at the art and like seeing like the bathroom selfies or the covers and all that stuff. I really enjoyed the art.
Yeah, and doing that stuff to feel current can feel super dated in just a couple of years. And so
exactly,
it is impressive that it holds up.
That and I enjoyed the story, just the sequencing, as you guys mentioned. But the positive, the art just was really fitting with everything going on.
Yeah. For me, the artwork, but also the character design. Gramps mentioned that Babs tends to do kind of sexy pinup style stuff a lot. But I like that these costumes of Batgirl and Canary are almost desexualized, but still very feminine. Like if you look at the character sketches in the back of the book, in the collected edition, there's a spot that specifically shows the new jacket. And there's like a good version and a bad version. There's a green check and a red X. The red X is like full outline of boobs and how it would look on a spandex superhero costume. And it's like, no, not this. It is a stiff leather jacket. We're not trying to sexualize a young girl. And to me, that shit's great because you have a person whose forte is leaning in that direction. And she's going, oh, no, but what's most appropriate here, like that shit has no bearing on this story. There's maybe some romantic qualities in it, but none of it's like overtly sexual superhero, big tits and muscles shit. It's just not there. So I like how they played that stuff. It all just feels very real. Again, that seems like something she could make at home. I like that the setting is removed from Gotham entirely because it's kind of like when we reviewed Nightwing and we're in Bloodhaven. Things are still fucked up, but it's colorful and it's different and it shakes things up a little bit from the constantly raining, constantly grimy Gotham that we're always reading.
Dark and gloomy.
And I love that shit, but I do think it's cool to step out once in a while. So that's my pros in general. What do you guys have now for cons?
Well,
Gramps has been waiting since before he even read it. I can't wait for the cons.
I think this is kind of like, have you ever gone to a restaurant that you really don't like, but you want to hang out with your bros and you want to enjoy the company? You're really trying hard to find something on the restaurant that you can somewhat enjoy.
You're looking over that menu over and over.
Yeah.
Please, God.
When the waiter comes to you, you're the last one to order because you're like, yeah, go ahead. And I'm just scouring this menu. I don't like any of the main courses, so I'm just going to get a combination of some appetizers and kind of make my own little meal out of appetizers. That's what this is.
Analogy. That's so good.
So that, yeah, I mean, I know I'm not the target audience, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I think they've done some really cool things. This is very tailored towards a younger female reader, and that's really cool because everyone is included in this book. Everyone can find something that they like in this book. I was really surprised when you picked this book. I don't think I'll buy volume 2 or 3 of this book.
You're like, this is not what I signed up for, you motherfucker. That is a very gentle and vague cons list, and I'm picking up the subtext.
Good. You smell what I'm stepping in.
He's like, I'm not going to go on a rant here, but you get the point.
Yeah, please don't recommend another book like this in the future.
How about you, Dunk? Do you have any more specific than Gramps cons?
Man, it just felt like I was watching a series on CW.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you know what? I started this. I got to finish it. Maybe it gets better. And then it has its moments. And I was like, all right, it wasn't that bad.
It's like the Supergirl show. You're like, this, I'll give it a few more episodes.
Do we really need that? Like, who the hell's, and then it's like, you know what? Just enough attention to capture me.
Exactly. So, they give you that little Martian Manhunter and you're like, oh, fuck. All right. I'll watch a little more of this.
Yeah. But I was struggling. at first.
I was too,
it just
man.
felt like that. It felt just like a CW show. And I'm like, oh, man, wasn't it get good?
It took me a long time to get past issue 3.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the first half is the challenging part.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I really don't enjoy all these initial villains, these side characters that we meet, as I described them, kind of disposable characters. It was just kind of like, man, I remember liking these books because, again, I have the 3, and I didn't really remember what it was about. I just kind of was like, I have a fond recollection in general. I wanted to revisit it in depth for the show. And then each one of these characters introduced, I'm like, Jesus, God, really? None of these motherfuckers are cool, And so I wasn't attached to any of the antagonists, really. And I thought at the end, again, it is crazy ahead of its time, kind of meta now with the AI villain and shit. But I also think it could have been sold better. And if we integrated the Secret Origins shit throughout and built up more directly to that, it would have been more of like a, oh shit kind of reveal as opposed to, what? You know? And then the next issue explains why it's cool, you know?
Or at least make it more known that Barbara's recovery, and that was another thing, is explaining how she got to be Batgirl.
Right.
Explain that a little earlier, not so much that it was the AI thing, but, oh yeah, she's got this computer chip.
Well, and that's tricky, though, because this is issue 35. You don't want, if you're reading an ongoing, to constantly be like, when we last met our hero, here's Batman's origin story again. His parents were killed, you know, like, goddamn, you know. But
now I'm curious about 1 through 34.
But when you're pitching this collection as volume 1, that's when it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, it throws you off.
You kind of can't win. Overall rating, I'm sitting on a 3 because I think the artwork is probably a 4 and the story is maybe a 2. So I think kind of in the middle there. I'll probably read it again someday in the future once I've forgotten what it's about again. I may sit down and read 2 and 3 and be like, oh, right, there's the stuff I really liked. I don't know, but it's fine. Like Gramps had said before, it's right in the middle of that shelf somewhere, you know? Dunk, what do you have for a rating here?
I'm like sitting between like a 2.5 and a 3.
Yeah.
Kind of for some similar reason. Like that's the same rating I give most CW series. They both had the same energy. So it was like,
it's fine.
Yeah, I might read it again sometime in the near future. If they do make a Batgirl series in the CW, this is it.
For sure.
Yeah.
A streamlined version of this that was translated to animation or something would actually be really cool. Like if you could integrate some of this stuff like we've talked about, we could get some of these fights that aren't just like a page and a half really quick.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's good as a show. You could prolong a lot of it because also like how rushed it is in the first couple of first issues. Right. That's like 4 episodes. You could sprinkle in a lot of other things in there.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's me
more
thinking as a TV
development.
Show. Yeah, exactly. So I could see this as like a TV show. So I'm like, yeah, there's going to be definitely CW. So I'm still between a 2, 5, 3.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Gramps, no negative numbers, but it's your turn.
It's number 1.
All right.
I'll give it a 1.
You're number 1. You're number 1.
Yeah. I felt that way the first 3 issues. And I'm like, oh, this book's about to get shitted on.
Yeah, it's just something I'm never going to pick up again. I think Babs Tarr did a great job with the art.
A single star for the art.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go.
He actually earned more points, but the other stuff, yeah, it's just a 1. I want to tell the readers this book will be for sale if anyone wants to hit me up.
That's so good.
I'll even autograph it as reviewed on Bat Fanatic.
All right, that is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I want to make a slight correction because we attributed the art layouts to Babs Tarr, who did amazing artwork in the series, but upon further reflection, it was actually Cameron Stewart who plotted a lot of this stuff along with the script. And so if you go to the back of the trade, you will see Cameron had actually put together a lot of the panel layouts that were used to tell this story. So just wanted to give credit where credit is due. But if you like the show, as always, give us the 5-star rating and review. It only takes a few seconds. Seriously, do it right now. I'll fucking punch through your phone. Punch. Yeah, do it. Anyway, we appreciate the love. Share us on social media, all that shit. And we will return with Batman One Bad Day, the Penguin.